and ESPN1420.com. Welcome back into the Great Scott Show, the Great Sports Callers Open Think Tank. Joining me right now, our good friend Mike Detillier, editor and publisher of Mike Detillier's NFL Draft Report, the college and pro football analyst for WWL 870 in New Orleans, sports columnist for websites, newspapers. You hear him on Saturday mornings on the Mr. Bitter Show right here, and occasionally from time to time on this show. Mike, I know you are super busy right now. It's the holiday season. Appreciate the time, man. You had a commercial shoot today. How did that go?
Yeah, man, listen, I'm involved in so many other matters, but commercial shoot today, and also I've been involved in the movie business, so it kind of never stops, but always got time for you.
Well, if you were going to make a movie about the Saints season this year, what would you title it?
Oh, my goodness. It wouldn't be a disaster flick, but it would be what you see in the NFL today. It would be, a picture that basically broke even. And right in that stage, what you see is a middle-of-the-road team. And this is what the NFL is all about. You probably got, 5 really good teams and 5 really bad teams and 22 teams that are middle of the road. And that's what you got with New Orleans. They're a middle-of-the-road football team.
And one reason I think, I'm with you, Mike. I tell folks that a lot. I say, look, the Saints aren't a bad team. They're just not good. And when I discuss the issues of the current state of the team on my show, I always remind folks about dead money and bad drafts. It's easy to watch a game and say, oh, well, the defense is awful and what are they doing? But it's not really a quick fix because of dead money and bad drafts. I think it's the two biggest culprits for the Saints not being a winning team right now. Of the two, though, Mike, let's say their drafts between 2009 and 2014 or dead money due to bad contract signings, which do you think has had the bigger impact on this football team?
Oh, it's been the bad drafts. From 2010 to 2014, while you were breathing in all that rarefied air of a Super Bowl victory, you got clocked in the draft. You've got 3 players on offense and 3 players on defense left in 5 years. 6 players. That's where all of this starts at. Starts and stops. Everybody's got some dead money, but the Saints' dead money is extravagant. But
right, they're first in the league in that category.
Yeah, but it's really the bad drafts. And again, I go back to that. While you were sitting on back of the Mardi Gras float waving to the crowd, it got away from you. And listen, everybody loved the Super Bowl victory and the party and everything afterwards. But bottom line is, once you got a taste of it, you wanted that taste again. And you couldn't piece it together. Poor talent evaluations, not only in the draft, but also free agency. In that time frame, there was only one guy who's been a significant player on this team. That was Keenan Lewis, who's hurt today. Look all the bad free agent pickups they've had in that time frame. People say, well, they changed it in the offseason. They brought in Jeff Ireland. Well, my thing is, did Jeff Ireland bring in C.J. Spiller, who's a non-fit on this football team? Did he bring in Brandon Browner, who's a non-fit on this football team? So you did well in the 2015 draft. But, boy, I'm just telling you, when you look at that 2010 to 2014, that 5-year frame and 6 players and 1 free agent, that's, noteworthy. That's why you're in the spot that you're in today.
Who you mentioned Spiller and Browner. Of the two, who's been a worse signing for the team this year? Was it C.J. Spiller or Brandon Browner?
Well, bang for your buck, you've gotten nothing out of C.J. Spiller. I mean, other than the Cowboys game, he's been a bit player on this team. He's a non-fit or he doesn't pick it up or whatever is the system. All I know is Reggie Bush knew what to do on this offense. Darren Sproles knew what to do in this offense. Oh, why not C.J. Spiller? I asked that big question mark. You never get an answer about any of it. They him and haul around it. But last week he touched the ball, I think it was 8 times, and 5 of them he ran out of bounds. Standing up. I mean, I think that impresses you with Tim Hightower is how tough of a guy he is. and he runs stuff inside. He takes the shot. He plays hard. And C.J. Spiller, a lot of times you can see can cut it up the field. He refuses to do it. Just won't. Brandon Browner is what he is. You got a guy, and I wrote this and said it when they signed him. He's led the league in penalties 2 straight years. What makes you think all of a sudden that that's going to stop here? In the pass rush, I know in Seattle and New England was a lot better than with the Saints. A lot better. And, he's trying to survive. Now, some of the stuff he does on the field as being, chippy and everything else, and his confrontation with Dennis Allen, who's his biggest backer, and I don't go for that. But my thing about it is, why did you think, when you bring in a guy who's led the league in penalties the last 2 years, that he was going to change on this team? And he was playing on 2 Super Bowl teams, 2 Super Bowl winning teams. Why would you think that was going to change when he came here? They don't have the talent of the Seahawks and the Patriots. So, all the way across the board, neither one has worked out. But bang for the buck, at least Browner's played. Spiller hasn't.
Yeah, and Spiller's he got a bigger contract than what they gave Mark Ingram. I mean, he's sitting there, $16 million 4-year deal, and I thought if healthy, he would be very, I thought he'd be a key piece to this offense. You look at his skill set and what he did in 2013 in Buffalo, which was a great season for him. 2014, injuries, and thought he might be able to put some of that in the Saints offense, Mike. And all the reports are he can't grasp the playbook. Well, that's, did you miss that when you interviewed him? I don't know. It's surprising to me that, I can't go back and look at all of the Buffalo Bills offenses whenever he was there. And I know the Saints offense is a bit intricate, but, Dave Thomas came in 2009, and granted, he's a very instinctive football player. He's very smart, very underrated in my opinion. But he learned tight end and H-back in that offense in a matter of days. And Spiller, he can't learn what to do in limited snaps. That's just unacceptable to me.
Scott, I don't buy that. I think that's the throw that this bad acquisition, they've thrown it on Spiller. I think what they don't like is his attitude and how he runs. So it's easier, much easier, for you to say he doesn't get it. It's much easier for you to say that than the other way around.
Well, okay. So if it's his attitude, Mike, look, he appears to say all the right things. The coaches say, he's a team player. He says the organization's good to me. Have you heard some whispers that that's just he kind of knows how to work the media? His attitude isn't the kind of attitude we want here?
I think they all learn how to work the media.
Well,
not Brandon Browner, but most of them.
Well, with Brandon, he doesn't really. That's never been his forte. Really has never been that. He feels as though it's confrontational with the media, that they're always looking for an edge, everything else. But he used them when it was the Legion of Boom.
Oh yeah,
he used that part when he was in Seattle. But then once they started pointing out he wasn't the same player, then all of a sudden it became a confrontational issue with him. And it became a confrontational issue with him also, the same way with his own defensive coordinator. Listen, I've seen those type of events happen on the sidelines before. It's in the heat of the battle, those sort of things happen. But, I'm just shocked that, that people would think that he's going to be a different player than he was in New England or when he was in Seattle. That to me is the most shocking thing, that he would come to a lesser team and play better. That ain't going to happen. The shocking thing was Spiller. He seemed to be a good fit in this offense. He can catch the ball coming out the backfield. He's got great speed off the edge. He looked fantastic in the OTAs and all the segments that we were able to see in the practice sessions. He looked great. The problem became we never saw that guy. We never saw that guy in an actual football game. And so listen, the 2 best acquisitions this offseason, think about it, was a 30-something-year-old Kevin Williams at the tail end of his career
And look how productive he's been on this football team as a defensive tackle. Now, I would have loved to have had the 23-year-old instead of the flip.
That would have been pretty
Kevin,
good.
but he's played well. The other one's been Donnell Ellaby. The Saints might be just coincidental. They're 4-1 with him starting. The problem with Donnell has been staying healthy, and he's had that issue. It was one of the reasons why Miami got rid of him, too, because of the fact he could just never stay healthy, with the Dolphins. And so they jettisoned him off, and he's a good football player. I spoke to Ed Reed about him once he left the Ravens and went to Miami, and he raved about him, about how good of a player he was. So when you think about it, bang for the buck. And the trade, the Kenny Stills trade, and Kevin Williams, at the real trail end of his career, they've become the guys. The best acquisitions they've made this offseason.
Mike Detillier, our guest. Mike, I'm going to ask you some positive questions about the team in just a moment. But last thing on Spiller and Browner that I have down here in my notes, and it kind of gets back to the dead money issue. You got 12.1 already next year for a guy that's not going to be on your team in Junior Gillette. You know, if you cut Spiller, it's close to $4 million. If you cut Browner, it's over $5 million dead money. It's a little bit more on the cap if you keep them, but not even that much, only about $750,000 more. So you're looking at saving about $1.5 million cap space if you cut both of those guys, but they're still costing you a lot of dead money. But the reality is you kind of got to put all that aside whenever they're just not the fits that they need to be. Do you see any scenario where either of these guys are on the team next year, or are they just going to be more dead money?
I can't see Brandon Brown on this football team next year. Spiller, I think, is still iffy for me. But there's no way I can see Brandon Brown on this football team. I think they've seen enough. But here's the thing, Scott, and a lot of people say, well, cut him loose. It's not so much the money for the Saints, because you basically paid him what you're going to pay him this year. I mean, that money's already off the top of your deal to begin with. It's their pride. It's the pride to say, we made another mistake.
We screwed up again.
We messed up again.
Yeah.
It's pride. Listen, no one wants to admit they make mistakes. No one wants to admit they screwed up. But we all do. All of us do. And in personnel in the NFL is pretty hard. I mean, I see even Bill Belichick, who's the best of the best. You know, look at his track record. He's been hit and miss on a lot of draft choices and free agents and trades too. But my thing about it is, the one thing with Bill, you don't keep his mistake around. You know what? He's got enough skins on the wall. He doesn't keep his mistake around. This football team has had a history of doing that. Don't want to admit made a mistake. Man, move on with it. Find somebody that can play in that zip code. It's not so much the talent. It's the pride of this organization to admit they made a huge mistake on not one, but both of them.
ESPN 1420.com. Great stuff from the legendary NFL analyst, Saints analyst, Mike Detillier, breaking down the Saints with us today. We talk college, we talk pro with them, but today we're focusing on the black and gold. And, you know, I don't want to just sound like it's a big downer, Mike, or anything like that. I mean, yeah, they're 5-8, and it's been a rough year, but what's been the best positive surprise of this year's team for you?
Willie Snead. I mean, that's easy. When you look at first-year receivers in the NFL, now he spent a year on the practice squad, but he didn't play last year. Only Amari Cooper with the Raiders have more catches. Just think about that. All those early draft choices and stuff like that, and he's second to Cooper. He was a guy in training camp. He caught everything, and his ability to get deep. Now, I quantify it knowing who he was going up against, that some of that was because of the talent he was playing against. But he caught everything. After the second preseason game, in the shows I've done and also in my writings, one of the things I said, I knew he would make this team. I heard Drew Brees come on. In fact, he came on with us and made the comment that, man, I trust Willie Snead. I know where he's at on the field all times. Man, I know how to read into what Drew says as a player. In essence, what he was telling me is, man, he got my ultimate trust. And when he says, I know where he's at on the field at all times,
That's impressive. And so, you know what? He has been really the one guy offensively that has really, really stepped up. On the defensive side of the football, Stephon Anthony, you could see he's got the chance to be a good player, but it was Delvin Breaux. I scouted Delvin when he was in high school, saw what he went through, understood what happened once he signed on in the CFL. And I understand now why basically every team in the NFL was after him, once his contract was up. And other than a rough first game and a tough outing against the Colts, he's played really well. They've lined him up against another team's top receiver, and he's done a fantastic job. So I would say Willie Snead and Delvin Breaux have been the two kind of shining stars that you didn't really know enough about Delvin to say how he would translate from the Canadian Football League to here. And certainly no one knew enough about Willie Snead. I am impressed with Stephon. I think he's got a chance to be a Pro Bowl player in time, really good in run support. He's a playmaker. He needs some work in the pass cover part of the game. But you know what? Those three, that's a nice trifecta there.
Tim Hightower, not as big a role this year. He was on the team for the first cuts, then he was cut, then he was off the team for a while with injuries. He's back on, and I guess just coming off of last Sunday's game, it seems fitting to bring him up briefly, Mike, when you talk about positives. And the guy can't stop smiling. I mean, 2011, last time he had scored, a brutal torn ACL. And I remember the playoff game where the Saints smashed the Cardinals in 2009, but that first play from scrimmage for Arizona, you're looking at an 80-yard touchdown run for that cat. He doesn't have that speed he used to have, but no one can say he doesn't have determination. I mean, they're handing him the ball late in the game on the road to move the chains and get a win. And if they're looking for the right kind of guys in that locker room, and who knows if, at his age, if he'll be on the squad next year, but I don't think you can deny the impact that he's probably had on that team, not so much on the field like he did Sunday, but more so off it and within that locker room.
Well, him coming back and getting an opportunity, and that was his showcase game against the Bucs. And you know what? For most NFL players, man, the real world sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, bottom line.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you want to live the lifestyle of a professional player with the kind of money you're getting, the acclaim that you get, and you live in a lifestyle that very few people in this world will ever live. Man, Tim Hightower tasted the real world, the real one. He didn't like it. So he busted his butt to come back, off of those two injuries that he had, the knee-wise, and he was able to make it. I'm proud of him. He was always been great with the interviews with us, always talked candidly about how difficult it was to train by yourself, understanding that he would have been a long shot no matter where. Then, he was outstanding in the preseason. He makes the team, then gets cut again, and then they bring him back. But the tone of which Sean Payton spoke about him, I said this last Monday night before the Tampa Bay game that I knew he would be the bell cow guy. Just listening to the way Sean spoke about him and about his determination, his focus, everything else. And you know what? He fits this offense really well. He's a one-cut, get up the field, power-type runner. Now, his statistics, it wasn't nothing to write home about, but it's not the amount of yards he got, but it's when he got them. Crucial times in that game, Tim Hightower was called upon and he answered the bell. And you couldn't be prouder of a guy that, had a little taste of the NFL. Didn't make a lot of money, had a little taste of it. Then, because of injuries, it's taken away, and he makes this redemption back to the NFL. So, I'm real proud of what he's done. And I think he's a guy that you pull for. I don't care what, team you might pull for or anything else. You pull for a guy like Tim Hightower because, for him, he's making it the hardest way. And, think about it. They have a lot of other teams that were looking for running backs. He didn't get a sniff. Once the Saints cut him, he could have went anywhere else, and no one called him. They were all scared of the knee injury. So I'm glad for him, really am, and I'm proud of what he's been able to accomplish. And it's just his determination. I think that's why you pay money to go to a football game. to watch guys like him.
Well, he'll get
throwback players. No, he's a throwback guy that you saw a lot. If you grew up in the 60s and 70s, there was a lot of guys like him. Man, listen, they weren't making this kind of money. And so every week was a challenge for them. And that's what you see in Tim Hightower.
And fans will see more of him because with the Saints expected to put Marcus Murphy on IR and C.J. Spiller not getting the reps and the time that many expected, you'll probably see a lot of Tim Hightower here in these final 3 games. Saints 5-8, Mike, 3 games left. How much, if any, impact will these next 3 weeks have on the job security of some of the staff, whether it be coaching staff or front office?
Zilch. I think the big question mark is going to be after the season. Does Sean Payton decide to stay and try to rebuild this football team? Or does he maybe feel as though, you know what, I've done my frame here. Man, I see what's going on behind the scenes in this ownership fight. Maybe it's time for me to leave. And, that's going to be Sean's decision. Now, where I differ is this. Sean denies everything about what he calls splash reports. Well, guess where that's coming from? His own people. That's coming from his own agent. Put the splash reports out. They want it out there. I think it's no better than 50-50 he returned. And it wouldn't shock me that he leaves after this season, the Saints trade him or whatever. Certainly Miami would be one of those teams. The other team, too, to watch for is the New York Giants. Sean's got a tie there. He was an assistant coach there. He's got a great relationship with the Morrow family. I can't see Sean go to Tennessee or Indianapolis. But I could see him go to Miami or New York. He loves the big time, the big stage. And you know what? Wherever Sean goes, I think most of this staff will go with him.
Then you're looking at a lot of new things next season. Drew Brees, though, a constant for the Saints. Mike, how many years does he have left playing the quarterback position at the high level that he, to his credit, continues to play it at?
I think at least 2 more and possibly a third, just depending on injuries. And that'll be the other thing that happens this offseason, what happens there. If you cut or trade Drew Brees, you take a $10 million dead money hit. If you don't do anything with his contract, it's $30 million. So, Drew has always made this comment that I'm willing to extend my contract, renegotiate, whatever, to help the team. And he did in the fall to help free up a little bit of money. But in doing so, the Saints put themselves in a little bit of a pickle here. Because now it's either you pay him $30 million, it's either you cut or trade him and take a $10 million dead money hit, or you extend his contract. So Drew Brees is going to be back. They're going to extend that contract and give him a few more years left on it, and then they'll deal with it down the road. Man, for this team, I look at it a little bit like Les Miles. People were yowling about Les that, you'd have to pay him $15 million not to coach. Well, guess what? $10 million dead money is basically like saying we got $10 million for a coach that's not here. I mean, basically, you got a quarterback that's $10 million. It flops it here with Brees. So I think he's going to get that extension sometime in January or February. But I would be shocked if the Saints cut him or trade him, only because it actually doesn't make any sense that you would take a $10 million dead money hit for a guy that's not even on your team. And they got enough dead money now.
Well, yeah, for not just a guy. I mean, you're going to have a $12 million dead money hit for a guy in June Ugalef, but Drew Brees. I mean, the face of the franchise, the quarterback, a guy still playing.
And who you going to replace him?
Right. Guys still playing at a high level.
All the time when people call in on the shows or different things I do is play Garrett Grayson. What? Are you kidding me? I mean, do you really think in the back of your mind Garrett Grayson can come in here and play even in the same kind of zip code as Drew Brees today?
No.
That's not the case.
No.
But listen, when you're a quarterback, and I work with 3 of them, so I understand the mentality. They get a lot more credit when they win than they should, and they get a lot more blame when they lose. And they understand that. It's like their head coach. So in this case here with Drew Brees, they got people that are Drew Brees haters, not because of his talent, but because he's getting paid a lot of money. Bottom line. Listen, he deserves that money. What he's done out on the football field, he deserves the money he's got. So I think a lot of people that will complain today, when Drew's not here, it'll be the same ones that'll call your show, my show, and others and say, man, I sure wish they had number 9 back in the lineup.
I know I'll never understand those that started a couple years ago saying what are they doing with this guy? And I can't even deal with it, Mike. I mean, he's still playing at a high level. It is so hard in the NFL to find an elite quarterback. You know what it
is? God blessed us with some great traits and also with some bad ones. The bad one is jealousy of someone else. And so that has a lot to do with it. And we live in a community. I've lived there all my life. And so it's okay for us to complain about one of our people, but if somebody else does it, then we want to defend them. I mean, that's just not the Cajun mentality, so to speak, that's here. But I think with Drew, you got to understand what he's meant to this franchise. That, if you're a 5-win football team today, without him, you'd probably be a 3 or 2-win football team at best.
At best. One guy that Brees has thrown it to many, many times is Marcus Colston. Mike, 9,720 career receiving yards. Only 3 games left this regular season. I'd love to see him get to the $10,000 yard mark for his career. Going to be very difficult to do that at his age, at his level of play, the next 3 games. And I feel like this is probably the last year for Marcus. My question to you, is this the final year for Marcus Colston, and is this the final year for Zach Strief? I say yes, but what does Mike Detillier think?
Yeah, and I throw Johnny Evans, too.
Yeah, sorry, let me throw him in there, all 3 of them.
You know what, God bless you. You're talking about a consummate pro, and that's been Marcus Colston. Where he came from, watching him early on when they drafted him, no one could have guessed that he would have done what he's done in the National Football League. But he's such a focused guy, unassuming, which is unusual for a star receiver. He's never beat his chest. I'm the greatest. I'm the best. All this other stuff. He's the best wide receiver that's ever put on the black and gold. The very best. And the records prove it. So I think it's the end of the trail. Zach's been a solid player in the NFL, but you can see his skills are eroding. And the same thing with Jari Evans, where, for what you're paying him, that's a lot of money. You're paying him to be an elite player, and he's not that anymore. And Jari will go down as the greatest guard that the Saints have ever had on this team. So, you could literally, in one off season, lose the greatest receiver this team has ever had on the field and the best guard they've ever had on the field in one shot, in Jari Evans and Marcus Colston. So it's just not rebuilding this team on defense, but it's also rebuilding on offense, where you're going to have to find a number 1 receiver. You're going to have to find a couple of guards. You're going to have to find a young tight end. Then watch him, listen, he's had a great season, but he's way up in age, he's not anymore.
Yeah, he's 34 years old. I mean, that is not. You know what? In the everyday world, that's young. In the NFL world, at tight end, 34 is not young. 34 is old, and that's a credit to him for being in the shape he's in, and what a great guy. But that's not your long-term answer at tight end because he doesn't have that much left in him.
Him and I did a kind of a signing and talk together, and when he heard me say about the real life, the real world sucks for an NFL player, he bust out laughing, and he shook his head. I said, you want to comment on it? He said, no. But, he was agreeing. I mean, he knows he's at the trail end of his career, and to have that type of season is just remarkable. So you can see offensively they're going to need some pieces, along with certainly a pass rusher, defensive end, outside linebacker. I don't know what's going to happen in the secondary. And Jarvis Bird's been such a major disappointment on this team. You keep him around. And you've got a lot of personnel decisions to make. And it's not just talent, but it's also financial decisions. That's where, you just shake your head that
man, since that Super Bowl run, this team has really, really, kind of kicked the stones all over the place, personnel-wise, financially, everything. And, it's the end of the innocence, so to speak, for the black and gold. And I'm not saying that, you finish 7 and 9, 8 and 8. So what? You've raised the bar really high to be a playoff team, to be a contender. And this team is nothing close to that at this stage. So there's a lot of, put it to you this way, it'll be a very adventurous offseason for the Saints.
Well, that'll be our last question for you here, Mike. Mike Detillier, our guest, the editor and publisher of Mike Detillier's NFL Draft Report. I get mine every single year. So my final question, Mike, and we appreciate you taking the time with us here on this Wednesday. What do you think will be the primary focus in the early stages of the draft for the New Orleans Saints?
Well, pass rusher one. If it's outside linebacker or defensive end, it's got to be a pass rusher. You've got to get a guy. The league is built upon having a star quarterback and having a dude that can put that star quarterback on his butt. I mean, that's where it starts, and kind of everything else is kind of trails after. So after that would be a number one receiver. Brandon Cooks is a good number two, but he's not a number one guy. And knowing the way this offense runs with Drew, he likes that big target guy over the middle. Use that size. Use that great length to first downs. You're not seeing Brandon Cooks. He can't do that the way he's built. So that would be, to me, 1A, 1B. Certainly what I talked about, the offensive guard play, I think has to be upgraded. And I think you certainly need some more talent along the defensive line, and another defensive end there. I think the big question marks will be what happens in the secondary with Browner, Bird, and Vaccaro. What are you going to do there? Because every one of those guys have been disappointments.
Mike Detillier has been our guest. Give him a follow on Twitter, at Mike Detillier. You hear him all the time breaking down college and pro football on WWL. You can read his columns and his on newspapers, website, saintsreport.com. You can hear him Saturday mornings right here on the Mr. Bitter Show, talking all kinds of college and pro football. Mike, I only get to chat with you a few times a year, but I mean it when I say it's always a pleasure. You know as much about the sport of football as anybody from South Louisiana that's ever been in this business. So thank you for the time. Thank you for the knowledge. Merry Christmas to you and your family. A Happy New Year, and maybe we'll talk to you one more time ahead of the draft, and we can discuss your draft report and a number of other things.
Thanks so much, Scott. I appreciate it. Wish everybody, certainly in the Lafayette area, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Just be safe. That life you saved just might be mine.
There you go. There you go. Mike Detillier has been our guest. RB will join me next as we wrap up the Great Scott Show on ESPN 1420 and .com. Mike, that was awesome.